Throughout tennis history, there have been many players who, for one reason or another, have not lived up to their full potential. Many because of injuries, some due to irregularity or mental weakness, while others simply because they were too damn lazy. Let's see some of these players and the reasons why they underachieve. Ernest Gulbis. When many people think of tennis players who did not live up to their full potential, Gulbis' name is one of the first to come to mind. The Latvian certainly had tremendous talent, on top of a powerful forehand and serve. Since his breakthrough on the circuit in 2006, Gulbis has shown numerous times he could be an elite player. I mean, the man almost bageled Nadal on clay, that's how good he was. However, Gulbis never lived up to that potential. He made it past the fourth round in only 2 Grand Slams and rose as high as number 10 in the rankings for only a short period of time. The reasons why Gulbis underachieved are not entirely clear. While injuries and his own inconsistency played a part, many have targeted his lack of interest in tennis and his laziness. The Latvian is the son of one of the wealthiest men in his country, so he always preferred luxuries and parties over training. But well, who can really blame him, right? Up next is another recent male player that proved he had the talents to beat anybody, but never managed to put it all together to be consistent and fulfill his potential. The pride of Cyprus. Marcos Baghdatis. Less than 2 years after his debut, Baghdatis made one of the most impressive runs in Grand Slam history, knocking Roddick, Nalbandian and Ljubicic out. The Cypriot reached the 2006 Australian Open final, where he was defeated in a decent match by prime Roger Federer. That same year, he reached the semi-finals of Wimbledon and his highest ranking, world number 8. It all looked like Baghdatis had a huge future ahead of him, but, well, you can probably guess how that went. Not only did he never again reach a Grand Slam semi-final, but he only won 2 250 series titles in the rest of his career. His brilliance and talent didn't abandon him, but his body did. The Cypriot has countless injuries and a lot of trouble staying in shape. Although he achieved some resounding victories against Federer and Nadal in Indian Wells and Cincinnati in 2010, Baghdatis never reached the potential he briefly showed in 2006. In that same 2006, a young female player from the Czech Republic showed as well her enormous future by beating some of the greatest players on the circuit on the biggest stages. Nicole Vydasova. When Nicole Vydasova beat Venus Williams in the quarterfinals of the 2006 French Open, everyone started comparing her to Maria Sharapova. The young Czech did have a very similar game and appearance to that of the Russian. She revalidated the comparisons the following year by reaching the semi-finals of the Australian Open and the quarters of the French Open in Wimbledon. Vydasova was a true 18-year-old prodigy with a great future ahead of her, but surprisingly, that was her peak. Shortly after her 20th birthday, Vydasova retired, citing a lack of interest in tennis. It was never known what was really behind this decision, but many pointed to her then partner, tennis player Radek Stefanek. According to some, this intense relationship with her 11 years older compatriot took up all the young star's thoughts. After splitting with Stepanek in 2014, Vydasova attempted a failed comeback. Her definitive retirement came 2 years later, shortly after remarrying Stepanek. What are the odds? Talking about odds, 48-1 was the betting odds when our next guy pulled out one of the biggest upsets in sports history and achieved what was thought to be impossible. Robin Soderling. In the fourth round of the 2009 French Open, Soderling shocked the tennis world and defeated Rafael Nadal. For the Spaniard, it was the first defeat in Roland Garros. For the Swedish, it was the confirmation of his massive potential. However, Soderling didn't stop there. He went on to reach the final of that French Open and of the next one too. He also won the Paris Masters in 2010 and reached the 4th spot in the world ranking. It seemed only a matter of time before he won at least the French Open once, but fate played a trick on him. In mid-2011, the Swedish player began to notice unusual fatigue, shortness of breath, both during and after matches. After several medical tests, he was diagnosed with mononucleosis. He began a slow and defiant recovery, but never played tennis professionally again. In 2015, he had no choice but to renounce his retirement, having played his last tournament 4 years earlier. Soderling wasn't, of course, the only player whose career was cut short unexpectedly. Our next female player, an American prodigy, is probably the most dramatic and early example of this. Andrea Jaeger. Andrea Jaeger burst onto the tennis scene at the age of 14 and became one of the leading performers on the women's circuit during the first half of the 1980s. At the age of 16, she had reached second place in the ranking, and before the age of 18, she had already made the finals of Wimbledon and the French Open, both lost against Martina Navratilova. The young American was called the heiress of Chris Evert. However, her career would end abruptly before she turned 20. In 1985, a major shoulder injury forced her to retire, cutting short one of the most promising careers in history. After that, Jaeger went to college and earned a bachelor's degree in theology and ministerial training. Later in life, she dedicated her time to charity and philanthropic work. Just like Jaeger, our next guy is another young American player whose supposedly bright future didn't turn out as expected. Donald Young. Discovered by none other than John McEnroe, the expectations for Donald Young were simply enormous. He was the #1 junior in the world and was labelled as the great hope of American tennis. The guy that was supposed to bring back its golden years, those of Sampras, Agassi, Courier, and so many others. As you probably know, that didn't quite happen. Young turned pro in 2004, but since then he has had a win-loss record of less than 40%. His best ranking has been 38th in the world, and his best Grand Slam result was the 4th round of the US Open. Not only that, Young has never won an ATP tournament, and his current ranking is below 600. To call his career a disappointment would be a major understatement. While some have considered this failure to be due to a lack of a champion's mentality or that he was demanded too much at a very young age, the only certain thing is that Donald Young was a victim of excessively high expectations. The same thing happened to our next female player. This Canadian was thought to be the next big thing on the women's circuit, but ultimately it didn't go that way for Eugenie Bouchard. Just like Donald Young, Eugenie Bouchard was hyped as a huge prospect after she won the 2012 Wimbledon girls title. When she made her debut in 2013, all expectations seemed to be justified. Her aggressive, attacking style was truly incredible, and everyone claimed she was a once-in-a-generation talent. The following year, at the age of 20, Bouchard advanced to the semi-finals of the Australian Open and the French Open, and then to Wimbledon's final. In that amazing 2014, she achieved #5 in the world. However, from that point on, things fell apart. Bouchard's level dropped considerably. Recently, she even disappeared from the WTA rankings. What the hell happened? Well, nobody knows. Some say that the crushing defeat she suffered in the 2014 Wimbledon final and in that year's WTA finals round robins destroyed all of her confidence. Others blame an accident she suffered in the US Open locker room when she slipped on a wet floor and got a concussion. It's also really probable that her sudden fame has distracted her from tennis. Since her breakthrough, Jeannie has become a social media sensation and has launched a successful modeling career. She has even dated a Twitter fan, so don't give up hope just yet, guys. Either way, Bouchard just never lived up to her potential. Our next gal did manage to reach some of her potential, but she's still in there because her ceiling was just too high. Svetlana Kuznetsova. Wait, before you go off in the comments, we know that calling Kuznetsova an underachiever is at least controversial. At the end of the day, she has had a pretty great career. She was #2 in the world and won 2 Grand Slams. Yet, she's on our list because she had the potential to actually be one of the greatest tennis players of all time. And no, it's not an exaggeration. Kuznetsova is an incredible player with athleticism and power similar to the Williams sisters and with a complete game that has been compared on one then more occasion to that of Federer. Even the Swiss maestro himself declared at the time that the Russian was her favourite female player. Why then has she underachieved? Mainly due to the numerous and consecutive injuries that have afflicted her. Throughout her career, she had to make more comebacks than probably any other player in the world. She's still playing today, trying to make another comeback, so let's hope she can stay healthy this time. Next up is another player you may be surprised to see on this list, as this Frenchman is one of the most well-known and beloved players on the entire circuit. Gaël Monfils. We all know Monfils. Few players in history have been more electrifying and entertaining to watch. Yet, despite being a fan favourite, Monfils has failed to live up to his potential. His agility, stamina, powerful first serve, and ingenious shot making have drawn applause from spectators around the world, but have not served him well in terms of results. He's only played 2 Grand Slam semi-finals and 3 Masters 1000 finals, losing them all. On the other hand, it is easy to justify his lack of success because he has shared an era with the big 3. But many other players less talented than him have also done so and won much more than he did. So, well, maybe Le Monf hasn't had as high a competitive instinct as others. But hey, nowadays he continues to delight fans around the world with his fabulous, although ineffective, tennis style, and has recently had a daughter with his wife, tennis player Elina Svitolina. So good for him. Talking about entertaining players, lastly we have a guy that, love him or hate him, always puts on a show. Nick Kyrgios. In recent times, no one has played the bad boy role on the circuit as well as Kyrgios. The Australian has truly sparked countless controversies. But don't let that fool you. There are few players in the world as talented as he is. Kyrgios is truly touched by the tennis gods. He has one of the most powerful serves of all time, a killer forehand, great reflexes at the net, and an incomparable feel with the racket. He has proved several times that on his day, he can beat anyone. And when we say anyone, it really means anyone, whether it's Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, or Murray. However, the Australian has only reached the final of 1 Grand Slam and 1 Masters 1000, both times resulting in defeat. So the repeated question is obvious: what's wrong with Kyrgios? Well, simply put, he's too damn lazy and doesn't care that much about tennis. He has even stated that he prefers to play other sports such as basketball. As a result, he has neither the interest nor the work ethic to take his potential to the fullest. But watch out, Kyrgios' career is not over yet, so he has more than enough time to take his name off this list. That was our list. These are just some of the players who have not reached their full potential. In my mind, the greatest underachiever in this group is none other than Svetlana Kuznetsova. While she achieved more than any other players on this list, she also had the biggest potential of them all. It is hard to deny that if it were not for injuries and her own irregularity, she could be mentioned alongside the names of Monica Seles, Martina Hingis, Justine Henin, or even alongside the greatest of all time like Serena, Chris Evert, or Martina Navratilova. You probably can't say that about any other player on this list. Although, if his career continues on this path, Nick Kyrgios could actually become a close second. Of course, this doesn't mean that these players had bad careers. The fact that they are on this list shows that whether for a long or short time, they have shown the entire world that they had the makings of great champions. While they won't be able to show their grandchildren their names on the list of best players in history, at least they can show them that they made it on our list. That should be a nice consolation prize, right? Now it's your turn. Which other players who haven't lived up to their potential do you remember? Who is tennis's biggest underachiever? Comment below. In the meantime, be sure to check out our video about other great tennis players that, despite their huge potential, didn't win a Grand Slam.